मैं डॉक्टर रूपा सैनी अर्चना अवार्डी इन हॉकी पटियाला तो मैं इत्थे आई है तो ये जिहड़ी कॉन्फ्रेंस गुरु नानक देव यूनीवर्सिटी करा रही है, इसलिए मैं सब तो पहला तो वाइस चांसलर साहब तो फिजिकल एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट के हैड जिहड़े उन्होंने बहुत मुबारकबाद देनी है कि फर्स्ट टाइम ये इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस इत्थे हो रही है। इस दे नाल जिहड़ा है बाहर दे जिहड़े साडे स्पीकरस आए हुए ने, डेलीगेट्स आए हुए ने। सो फॉरेन कंट्रीज़ दे विच फिजिकल एजुकेशन नूं किस तरह लिया जाता है एज ए प्रोफैशन, तो साडे इंडिया दे विच किस तरह फिजिकल एजुकेशन नूं लैंदे ने, ये दोनों चीज़ों का फर्क जिहड़ा है साडे फिजिकल एजुकेशन टीचर्स नूं बूस्ट करेगा। क्योंकि अजे तक जिहड़ा साडे इंडिया दे विच सिर्फ यही समझ लैंदे ने कि फिजिकल एजुकेशन सिर्फ खिडौना ही है। हुण जदों ये बाहर दे जिहड़े कंट्रीज़ दे डेलीगेट्स दे लैक्चर सुनणगे स्पोर्ट्स साइंसिस वाले, उन्होंने भी बड़ा फ़ायदा होना कि उत्थे किस तरह रिसर्च करते हैं, किस तरह टैलेंट सर्च करते हैं। जिस तरह साडे अज जिहड़े मलेशिया के की नोट स्पीकर उन्होंने दस्सिया कि टैलेंट किस तरह वो सर्च करते हैं। सो इहदे नाल असीं अपने हिंदुस्तान दीयां जिहड़ियां टीम्स ने उन्होंने ओलंपिक विच मैडल जितन दे जिहड़ा काबिल बनाउण लई सब तो जरूरी है कि बच्चों को छोटी एज तो कैच दैम यंग के अनुसार जिहड़ा असी टैलेंट सर्च करके उन्होंने ठीक लाइन दे विच पाईए, नहीं कि पहला उन्होंने किसी होर गेम च पा दिए, फिर 20 साल दे होए तो उन्होंने कहिए कि तू एथलैटिक्स नहीं हॉकी च आ जा या बास्केटबॉल च आ जा। सो ये बहुत जरूरी है। ये कॉन्फ्रेंस बहुत हेल्प करेगी। साइंटिफिक जिहड़े साडे स्पोर्ट्स साइंटिस्ट ने उन्होंने सारियां जिहड़ियां स्पोर्ट्स नाल रिलेटेड इंजरीज़ उन्होंने हाउ टू उन्होंने किस तरह उन्होंने ठीक करना है, किस तरह इंजरीज़ नूं जिहड़ा ट्रीट करना है, वो सारी जिहड़ी नॉलेज है इन्हों बहुत वधाएगी। सो ये नाल साडी स्पोर्ट्स ते फिजिकल एजुकेशन का जिहड़ा है फील्ड ये विच बहुत जिहड़ा अगों बदलाव आएगा। बच्चों नूं जिहड़ी बहुत बूस्टिंग मिलेगी कि इंटरनेशनल स्पीकरस नूं जदों सुणनगे तो ये नाल उन्हां च होर भी मोराल बूस्टिंग होएगी।
On Global Scientific Conference on Physical Education, Health and Sports Sciences. Thank you for the interest you all have shown, and once again thank you for coming here from near and far off to take part in this conference over the next 2 days. Welcome to the holy city of Amritsar. The program is scheduled to begin in a short while from now. The chief guest of today's function has already arrived. I request all to kindly occupy your seats as soon as possible. I would like to welcome Professor Dr. A.K. Uppal, ex-Vice Chancellor of Jiwali University, Gwalior, and Dean Lakshmibai National Institute of Physical Education, Gwalior. He is the only person in the country to hold 2 postdoctoral degrees. I would also like to welcome Professor Dr. M.A. Kamlesh, ex-principal of Lakshmibai National College of Physical Education, Trivandrum, who also remains the Secretary of Physical Education, University of Kerala. I further welcome Professor Dr. K.K. Goma, ex-Vice Chancellor of Lakshmibai National University of Physical Education, Gwalior. He is a retired chairman and head Department of Physical Education, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. We would like to welcome Professor Dr. N.S. Maan, retired professor from Department of Physical Education, Punjab University, Chandigarh. He is a recipient of Lifetime Achievement Award. We heartily welcome Dr. Rupa Saini, the first youngest Indian woman hockey player to make her debut at the age of 15 years. She represented India at various international tournaments. She was conferred with the prestigious Arjuna Award in 1975. She retired as principal, Government Mahindra College, Patiala. Welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Trilok Singh Sandhu, an international basketball player and recipient of Baba Sheikh Farid Award in 2002. He retired as Deputy Director for Punjab University, Chandigarh, and is now serving as Director for Guru Kashi University, Talwandi Sabo. We also welcome Dean Student Welfare, Nanak University, Amritsar, Professor Dr. P.K. Sehpal for being here on the inaugural ceremony of Global Scientific Conference on Physical Education, Health and Sports Sciences, organized by Department of Physical Education Teaching, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. We would also like to welcome Dr. Nishant Singh Deol, youngest professor and head of department, Punjab Physical Education Department, Punjabi University, Patiala, for being here. We also welcome Dr. Gurmeet Singh.
Next we have amongst us Professor Dr. Kamaljeet Singh.
A hearty welcome to Professor Dr. Avinash Sidhu, retired professor from Lakshmi Bai National Institute of Physical Education, Gwalior, who has also worked as sports psychologist in Bangladesh Institute of Sports, Dhaka. She has a rare distinction of being the captain of the Indian two teams, hockey and volleyball. Welcome you, ma'am. I am extremely honored to have this chance to request Dr. Sukhdev Singh, Dean and Head, Department of Physical Education Teaching, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, to present bouquet to Brigadier Lal Singh, Olympian and Dhyanchand Awardee, the chief guest of the day. Brigadier Lal Singh represented India at Tokyo Olympics in 1964, Battle of Asian Games 1966 and Edinburgh Commonwealth Games 1970. He is also honorary sports advisor, Directorate of Sports, Government of Punjab since 2005. Since the journey began, we are delighted to have in our MF Professor Dr. Alexander from School of Health Sciences, University Stans, Malaysia, today as keynote speaker. He is an associate professor in exercise and sports science program at University Stans, Malaysia. He is bestowed with many international awards and honors and has coordinated and chaired many international events. This brings pleasure bouquet to Professor Dr. Alexander. May I now request Dr. Sukhdev Singh to present bouquet to Professor Dr. M.S. Sundar, Dean Academic Affairs, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. To formally welcome him, may I now request Dr. Amandeep Singh, Assistant Professor, Department of Physical Education, GNDU, to present bouquet to Dr. P.K. Sehpal, Dean Student Welfare, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. May I also request again Dr. Amandeep Singh, Assistant Professor from Department of Physical Education, to also present bouquet to Dr. T.S. Benipal, Director Research, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. I further request Dr. Barjinder Singh Bal, Assistant Professor from the Department of Physical Education Teaching, Guru Nanak Dev University, to present bouquet to Dr. Inderjeet Singh, Registrar, Guru Nanak Dev University. We would also like to welcome the distinguished delegates from Bangladesh and Ethiopia. May I request the volunteers to welcome them? We have among us Mr. Teketal, Lecturer, Bahidar University, Ethiopia. A big round of applause for them. Mr. Habitanu from Madavanabu University, Ethiopia.
ਸਿੰਘ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ
Mohammad Asadur Rahman from Islamic University, Bangladesh. A big applause for them.
प्रिंसिपल स्वर्ण सिंह प्रोफेसर स्वर्ण सिंह डॉक्टर सुखदेव सिंह करने स्वर्ण सिंह लिखे देना प्रिंसिपल स्वर्ण सिंह.
Now I request Dr. Sukhdev Singh, Head Physical Education Department Teaching, to kindly welcome Principal Sarwan Singh on this inaugural function of Global Scientific Conference on Physical Education, Health and Sports Sciences. We welcome you, sir, on this auspicious occasion.
Dr. H.S. Randhawa, Deputy Director, Guru Nanak Dev University.
कौन है?
डॉक्टर एच एस रंधावा.
इसको कौन करेगा?
और सुखदेव से ही कर लेना. डॉक्टर सुखदेव.
एक पूरा लिखना.
डॉक्टर एच एस रंधावा, डिप्टी डायरेक्टर.
I again request Dr. Sukhdev Singh to welcome
Dr. H.S. Randhawa.
Dr. H.S. Randhawa
From Department of Physical Education.
from Department of Physical Education, Allied Teaching. Welcome you, sir.
ਦੇ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਆਫ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕਰਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਰਿਗਾਰਡਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕ ਬੇਸਿਸ ਆਫ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਇਨ ਹੈਲਥ ਐਂਡ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਦਾ ਥੀਮ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਨੀਡ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈ ਗੇਮਸ ਐਂਡ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਅਗਰ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੈਲਥ ਨੂੰ ਲਈਏ ਜਾਂ ਗੇਮਸ ਐਂਡ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਔਰ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸਿਸ ਅਗਰ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੰਪੀਟ ਕਰ ਪਾਵਾਂਗੇ. ਅਗਰ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਆਸਪੈਕਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਐਡਵਾਂਸ ਕੰਟਰੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਦੀਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ. ਇੱਥੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ 3 ਦਿਨ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕ ਪੇਪਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਲੇਟੈਸਟ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਐਕਸਪਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿਊ ਲਏ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਉਹ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਸੋ ਦੈਟ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰ ਸਕੀਏ. ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਪੂਰੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਟੇਟ ਦਾ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਅਗਰ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਲੈਵਲ 'ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ. ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਲੇਟੈਸਟ ਟ੍ਰੈਂਡਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਲੇਟੈਸਟ ਟ੍ਰੈਂਡਸ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ. ਔਰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡੈਲੀਗੇਟਸ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਬਜੈਕਟਿਵਸ ਨੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਪਲਾਨਸ ਕੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸੋ ਦੈਟ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਡਾਪਟ ਕਰੀਏ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੰਟਰੀਜ਼ ਅੱਗੇ ਨੇ ਐਡਵਾਂਸ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੰਗਾ ਪਰਫਾਰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕੰਪੀਟ ਕਰ ਸਕੀਏ. ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਲੈਟਫਾਰਮਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਿਰ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਯੰਗ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਸਕਾਲਰਸ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਪਲੈਟਫਾਰਮ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ. ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਐਡਵਾਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਔਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਕੀ ਐਡਵਾਂਟੇਜ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਯੂਟੀਲਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਫਾਰਮੈਂਸ ਨੂੰ ਐਨਹਾਂਸ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ. ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ ਬੜੀ ਹੀ ਸ਼ਲਾਘਾਯੋਗ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ. ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਇੱਕ ਪਲੈਟਫਾਰਮ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆਲ ਓਵਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਡੈਲੀਗੇਟਸ ਆਏ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਪੇਪਰ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੀਡਿੰਗਸ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਬੜੇ ਅਪ ਟੂ ਦਾ ਮਾਰਕ ਤੇ ਬੜੇ ਸਟੈਂਡਰਡ ਨੇ. ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਆਫ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੈਕਲਟੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਹੀ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ੰਸਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ.
No one lights a lamp in order to hide it behind the door. The purpose of the light is to create more light, to open people's eye, to reveal the marvels around. I now request our today's chief guest, Honorable Brigadier Lap Singh Olympian, Dr. Alexander from Malaysia, Dr. M.S. Hundal, Dean Academic Affairs, Dr. Inderjeet Singh, Registrar, Guru Nanak Dev University, Dr. T.S. Benipal, Director Research, and Dr. Sukhdev Singh, Dean and Head, Department of Physical Education, Teaching, Guru Nanak Dev University, to come over the dais for Jyoti Prajwalan. Welcome you, sir. The lightning of the lamp. sign off all upon the Joint Secretary of this conference, Dr. Baljinder Singh Bal, recipient of Research Award from Spain, to proceed formally.
I am really privileged to have the pleasant task of welcoming the distinguished gathering for the inaugural ceremony of Global Scientific Conference on Physical Education, Health and Sports Sciences being organized by Department of Physical Education Teaching, Guru Nanak Dev University. On behalf of the conference organizing committee and on my own behalf, I wish to thank you for your esteemed presence. क्या समेटेगा हमें ये वक्त का गहरा दरिया, हम किनारों से उबरने का हुनर जानते हैं, सीधे हाथों ने जो खींची है लकीरें टेढ़ी, उन लकीरों पे चलने का हुनर जानते हैं. I would like to invite Dr. Sukhdev Singh, Dean and Head, Department of Physical Education Teaching, Guru Nanak Dev University on the dais to kindly deliver formal welcome address. Dr. Sukhdev Singh. Honorable Chief Guest of the Day, Brigadier Lawson, Olympian, Professor Alexander, University Sains, Malaysia, Professor Anderson Zul, Dean Academic Affairs, Professor Inderjeet Singh, Director Research, Dr. Inderjeet Singh, Registrar of the University, Dr. T.S. Sanipal, Director Research, colleagues, eminent scholars, former Vice Chancellors, मैं आप सबका ये जो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ फिजिकल एजुकेशन वालों इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस करवाई जा रही है ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵਰਦੀ ਵਾਈਸ ਚਾਂਸਲਰ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਅਜੈ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਰਾੜ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਆਸ਼ੀਰਵਾਦ ਸਦਕਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਮਾਣ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਭਾਗ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਗਲੋਬਲ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਫਿਕ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਔਨ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਲਥ ਐਂਡ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਸਾਇੰਸਿਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਹੇਠ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। मैं आप सब जी का धन्यवाद करता हाँ कि आपने अपने कीमती समय के विचों थोड़ा समा कटते हुए साडे नाल इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में शामिल होए हो। ये कॉन्फ्रेंस करवाउण दा मकसद फिजिकल एजुकेशन नाल रिलेटेड लोगों वास्ते एक प्लेटफॉर्म प्रदान करना है ताकि साडे एमिनेंट स्कॉलर जो भी अपने रिसर्च वर्क बारे अपने आइडियाज साडे नाल इत्थे शेयर करनगे उन्हां तों असीं फायदा उठा सकीए। साडे वास्ते एक बदकिस्मती वाली गल है कि लोग फिजिकल एजुकेशन तो स्पोर्ट्स साइंसिस प्रति इन्ने अवेयर नहीं हैं। इस कॉन्फ्रेंस के थ्रू असीं उन्हां लोगों वास्ते एक प्लेटफॉर्म मुहैया करवाना चाहुंदा ताकि ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਿਸਕਨਸੈਪਸ਼ਨ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਪਾਈਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਦੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਐਸਪੈਕਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਏ ਜਾ ਸਕਣ। ਇਹ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ, ਟੀਚਰ, ਕੋਚਿਸ, ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਟਰ ਅਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਜੋ ਵੀ स्पोर्ट्स नाल रिलेटेड पर्सनैलिटीज हैं उन्होंने वास्ते एक प्लेटफॉर्म मुहैया कराएगी ताकि वो अपने आइडियाज एक दूसरे नाल शेयर कर सकें। मैं सब तो पहला अज के चीफ गेस्ट ब्रिगेडियर लव सिंह ओलंपियन उन्हों का इतने आने से स्वागत करदा कि ये वो व्यक्ति हैं जिहड़े कि हमेशा ही फिजिकल एजुकेशन के स्पोर्ट्स वास्ते डेडिकेट रहते हैं।
ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕੋ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਕਿ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਸੱਦ ਸਕਦੇ ਜੀ, ਮੈਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ। ਮੈਂ ਬ੍ਰਿਗੇਡੀਅਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬਾਰੇ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਦੱਸ ਦੇਵਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਹਨ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਟ੍ਰਿਪਲ ਜੰਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 16 ਮੀਟਰ ਦਾ ਡਿਸਟੈਂਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਕੀਤਾ। ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਓਲੰਪੀਅਨ ਹਨ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਬ੍ਰਿਗੇਡੀਅਰ ਦੀ ਪੋਸਟ ਤੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗਏ। ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜੇ ਲੱਕੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਐਡੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਪਰਸਨੈਲਿਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਅੱਜ ਚੀਫ ਗੈਸਟ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹੈ। ਸਰ, ਮੈਂ ਔਨ ਬਿਹਾਫ ਆਫ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਇਸ ਚੌਂਕ ਤੇ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਅਲੈਗਜ਼ੈਂਡਰ, ਇਹ ਹੈਲਥ ਸਾਇੰਸਿਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਸੇਂਟ ਮਲੇਸ਼ੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਐਜ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਵਰਕ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਰਿਨੋਨਡ ਪਰਸਨੈਲਿਟੀ ਨੇ ਐਕੈਡੈਮਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਈਵਨ ਕਿ 10 ਸਾਲ ਤੱਕ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ MS ਪਟਿਆਲਾ ਵਿਖੇ ਵੀ ਟੀਚ ਕੀਤਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੀਗ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਅਮਰਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਨੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜੇ ਸ਼ਾਰਟ ਨੋਟਿਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਐਜ ਏ ਕੀਨੋਟ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਮੰਨੀ। ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ। ਡਾਕਟਰ MS ਉਜ਼ਲ, ਡੀਨ ਅਕੈਡਮਿਕ ਅਫੇਅਰ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਖੁਦ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਪਟਿਆਲਾ ਵਿਖੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਸਨ ਤਾਂ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਖਾਸ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਚੰਗੇ ਸਪੋਰਟਸਮੈਨ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਜਾਣੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸਨ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੈਵੀ ਸ਼ਡਿਊਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਫੰਕਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਜਾਈਡ ਓਵਰ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਸਵੀਕਾਰ ਕੀਤੀ। ਮੈਂ ਸਰ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਤੇ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਰਜਿਸਟਰਾਰ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਮੈਨ ਆਫ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਜਾਣੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਜ ਏ ਟੀਚਰ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ, ਐਜ ਏ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਟਰ ਵੀ, ਐਜ ਏ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟਰ ਵੀ, ਐਕਸਟਰਾ ਕਰਿਕੂਲਰ ਐਕਟੀਵਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਖਾਸ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਗਏ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਸਾਡੇ ਇਸ ਈਵੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਯੋਗਦਾਨ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਪਾਇਆ। ਮੈਂ ਸਰ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣ ਤੇ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ। ਡਾਕਟਰ TS ਬੈਨੀਪਾਲ, ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਰਿਸਰਚ, ਇਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਐਜ ਏ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਚਾਰਜ ਲਿਆ ਹੈ। ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੀਤਾ। ਸਾਰੇ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਫ੍ਰੀ ਹੈਂਡ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਵਰਕ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਵੀਕਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ। ਸਾਡੀ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਦਦ ਕੀਤੀ। ਮੈਂ ਸਰ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਚੌਂਕ ਤੇ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਦਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਨੇ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਵਾਈਸ ਚਾਂਸਲਰ ਡਾਕਟਰ KK ਵਰਮਾ, ਡਾਕਟਰ AK ਉੱਪਲ, ਡਾਕਟਰ ML ਮਲੇਸ਼। ਮੈਂ ਸਰ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਚੌਂਕ ਤੇ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ eminent personalities, Dr. GS Prab, Dr. Kamaljeet Singh, Dr. Anurag Sidhu, Dr. NS Man, Dr. YP Sharma, Dr. Rupa Saini, Dr. Harvinder Singh, Dr. Nishant Singh ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ eminent personalities ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹਨ। ਮੈਂ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣ ਤੇ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਦਾ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਡੈਲੀਗੇਟ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ eminent scholar, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਕਲੀਗ, ਸਾਡੇ ਹੈਡਸ ਆਫ ਦੀ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਸਾਡੇ ਇਸ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹਨ, ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣ ਤੇ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।
Thank you, sir. The legendary Indian Swami Vivekananda has so wise said, "We are what our thoughts have made us." So take care about what you think. Words are secondary, thoughts alive, they travel fast. So with that, now I request today's keynote speaker, Dr. Alexander, to deliver his enriching thoughts. So please.
President, Brigadier and Olympian, our dignitaries on the dais, my good friends and colleagues for many years from India. Before I start talking about my keynote, I, in the first place, would like to thank you all for inviting me over here and giving me that brilliant opportunity right here to share some views with you. Thank you for that. Today's keynote is about talent recognition and development. The question may well come, why is that? That is for a simple reason. Every year, and you know it better than I do, the question pops up among the sports administrators, ministers, joint secretaries, secretaries. How do we really get more medals for the country in the Olympics? India has great traditions in Asian Games, in Commonwealth Games, in South Asian Games. Olympics is still something which country is yet to prove its mind. Although we got 6 Olympic medals in the recent Olympics, which was a huge achievement, still the question is there. How do we get more of the human potential India is blessed with? So for that matter, when given an invitation, I thought it would be a good idea to share some thoughts with you about talent recognition and development. So what is it about? It's basically the ongoing debates which are kind of for ages together out there. Nature versus nurture. So how does that actually work? And some of the presenters and some of the researchers keep telling that this is something controversial. There is nothing controversial. There is nature, which gives us a talent by birth, and there is nurture. That's what we do, or how we can contribute actually with our efforts through the development, through the acquired potential, through training, through talent development, and so on and so forth. The other thing here is that, all right, do we really follow something which actually brings us talent and not only helps detecting and identifying it, but also helps to develop it? And are we actually doing good enough to develop the talent which is out there without our intervention or without our kind of even knowledge? How do we know the talent? How do we learn he or she is out there? How we detect it? So for the present day, we used to operate with those definitions, like talent detection, talent identification, and talent selection. This is a classical model of talent identification. The question today, and what I'm trying to share today with you, is that classic talent identification model serves the purpose? Is it catering for all the needs we do have in order to identify and develop the talent? So what's the difference between these three? Talent detection is kind of a simple thing and quite becoming very popular now. It's actually spotting the talent from among the children who are not involved in sports activities. How does that happen? Schools, yards, streets, anywhere where kids are where kids are out and playing is actually the venue for detection. And you don't need much of a science there. And you don't need much of a sports science there. You may well need nice observers, trained eye, and maybe physical education teachers who will help developing or kind of developing certain tools to detect the talent. You don't even need coaches there. You need coaches later when talent identification is there among the children who are already invited to become a part of the sport. And then finally talent selection, when talents are there and the pool of talent is there, from which you have to pick the best prepared ones for the particular competition. And that's where talent selection actually is coming into picture. So the next few slides are about the other kind of definitions which are not very common and which are quite sometimes questionable and not commonly used. What about it? Talent confirmation, talent development of course is there, and talent transfer. So what are those? What is talent confirmation? Are we capable of answering the question whether the kid is talented or not right at once? No. Is the system of talent identification foolproof? No. we may well get mistaken, especially when we pick children from young sports, be it acrobatics, gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, or artistic gymnastics, or diving, when we have to identify the talent sometimes at the age of 6 or 7. That is really a tough task. So for that, we need talent confirmation. Is that kid particularly selected? Is it coachable? Is it trainable? You are bumping into that thing once in a while. Seemingly talented child is not improving. Why? He may not master the skills, he may not master the physics, something is not going. So you need sometimes confirmation. What is talent transfer? Talent transfer is basically the thing designed by the countries with limited human resources. Because they cannot afford wasting a talent. They don't have crores and crores of children around to pick from. So talent transfer is something very nice. When the child is not fitting into one particular sport, he'll be offered something else. He will not left alone. He will not be just sent back home saying, with that feeling that I'm not good at it. No. Everyone is good at something. Our job as scientists and pedagogic scientists, we have to fix that. Which sport any particular kid is fit for. So this is classic model of talent identification, which includes identification, selection, and development. Obviously, it is missing some important things. For instance, if our original talent identification was not necessarily 100% true, then what? We need confirmation. It is missing here. What if we selected the child and then finally assigned that kid to a particular sport? How that kid belongs to that sport? If we are talking hockey, is he or she a goalkeeper, or a defender, or a midfielder, or an attacker? How do we know that? He is a runner, or she is. Nice. Is it sprint? Is it middle and long distance? What is it? Is it jump? Which jump? Is it kind of a throw? Which one? So that is part of talent identification, which is temporarily missing. And we are now offering few new thoughts how to actually fix it. So historically and geographically, there were so many approaches to talent identification developed in many countries, very much dependent on social conditions, on ideological and political factors, and many others like physical education system. But sooner or later, in those approaches, one was always coming out and basically topping every other one. How? Basically, it was the factor of availability or absence of human resources to select from. And for that simple reason, we actually have developed certain models. One, fitting countries with unlimited or very substantial human resources, be it India, Russia, or China, and also the countries are there with limited human resources, like erstwhile German Democratic Republic, like for instance now UK or Malaysia for that matter. These countries cannot afford the same system like India or China has. So for that purpose, we actually started splitting the whole thing and saying, right, people, have a look. We have countries with unlimited resources and with limited. So the basic idea of talent identification will be different. It should be different. Because with limited human resources, countries cannot afford wasting a single talent. With unlimited human resources, there is still a kind of really feeling that, all right, if that kid is not good, we will have another 100. You don't have scarcity of children willing to play cricket, all right? You don't have scarcity of children willing to be a wrestler somewhere in Haryana or Punjab. So you have that, and that natural selection can actually take place, which is quite often happening. Whereas with countries with limited human resources, there will be features of talent identification like you can see at your right. Scientists are there, selection is more or less scientific. So what's next? There are so many kind of models of talent identification. There would be domain-based, criteria-based, or practices-based. And today, I'd like to share with you some experiences specifically about practices-based talent identification, because India has played a great role in here and keeps playing it. So, for instance, criteria-based, what is it? It's kind of a practice where different countries or clubs are practicing something like that. Tips. What is it, tips? Of course, that's not that tips which we commonly use to think about. It is technique, intelligence, personality, and speed. So basically, some players or some clubs are using these abbreviations like to take the talent from these particular criteria. So what is a practices-based system of talent identification? As I've mentioned before, we have got a really huge and rich history of various models developed in various countries. So if you take the USSR model of talent identification, the place that I was born and I was raised in, it was really kind of a good one, although of course it has its own limitations. So how and which were the limitations? So first of all, you can say that, all right, you've got a well-adjusted system of physical education. That is a very important thing, and that's why we are all here, because physical education and sports science are basically belonging to each other. We cannot exist without each other. We've got physical education, we've got sports science, so here how it works. We cannot afford having a nicely adjusted system of talent identification if we don't have properly adjusted physical education system. So that's how it works. If the system is fine, then it is very beneficial for the talent identification. But then, natural selection, yes, it has been there. We cannot deny it. It was on the paper scientific, not always really that way. So then, what else? Good attitude to sports, but at the same time, quite reasonably passive way of life. So for that reason, talent identification was sometimes successful, sometimes not. On the contrary, German Democratic Republic, erstwhile GDR, had all these particular things kind of set at play. Absolutely well-adjusted system of physical education. Those of you who have been there in GDR know that. Then, of course, scientific selection. Absolutely well, good attitude to sports and very active way of life. Then, other countries. India. We all are here in India. Let me tell you one thing which may be known to you, which may not be known. Not any country in the world had that many schemes for talent identification like India. And I will show you a few examples here today. So how is it in India? Unfortunately, there are very different and very kind of diverse situations in physical education in schools. There are pretty good schools, there are not really good schools in physical education-wise. Although, of course, selection is scientific, and that is a very strong point in India. And then, of course, how? Attitude to sports is there, and lifestyle is also important, and it is quite active. So, right since about 1986-87, India actually started National Sports Talent Fund. It was a great thing for the beginning. A huge number of kids was actually tested. I was blessed to be a part of it. We did some of our mistakes, we rectified those, and then basically we developed it into the system with Indian sports scientists, which was actually working. Another system or another kind of talent identification schemes rather than systems, Army Boys Sports Companies. Greatest idea, with the huge and enormous facilities there in Indian Army and with kind of people willing to be part of sport. That was really another kind of opportunity. The next one, actually, and another very successful scheme, Special Area Games, run by Sports Authority of India. The whole idea of Special Area Games was actually picking the talent from rural areas, from tribal areas, from places where actually kids were originally and genetically good with something. There was a nice scheme about archery, from where Limbaram and Shamlal actually originated as elite athletes. There were schemes in Kerala, which I was again blessed to be a part when we were looking for potential rowers and potential kayakers. There was a well-known hike hunt scheme in Rajasthan, where actually kids were selected for various sports. And this was a really great success, and I'm again repeating that I was lucky enough to be part of those particular schemes. China, now a world leader. How is their talent identification emerged? It's basically a very kind of absolutely unlimited human resources, nice, good attitude to physical education, Natural selection, in a way, they don't pay really much attention to originally initial talent identification. They launch the whole machinery of sports science later, when the kids are already kind of confirmed talent. So the rest of the attitude and healthy way of life is, of course, there. Australia more or less inherited this stuff from GDR. A little bit of flesh from Germans, a little bit of flesh from Russians. So basically emerging with a really naturally, nicely working system of talent identification. And now emerging force as South Africa. So how do we really treat them? South Africa is so diverse that it is really hard to say how does it work. And that's the problem, that the kind of really physical education in schools is so kind of diverse that it's sometimes really difficult to say good or bad. There are good schools, there are bad schools, there are still kind of features of apartheid, although officially no more. And then of course talent. Sometimes you don't have access to that pool of talent. You cannot really pick them when you want those. So what are the advanced stages or advanced stages, like we call, of talent recognition, and why I'm using that term, talent recognition? Because, as I said, talent identification alone is not serving a purpose. We have to have talent confirmation at least in about a year or so, when we actually need to see whether the kid is really talented or not. So what's the next one? Next one we used to call talent orientation. So how is that? That's when you really need to help the child to say and to identify a particular position in the game, or a particular kind of really sport from a particular group of events or something. And then finally, what do we say? Okay, we have selection, from where we move to selection to the camp, selection to the squad, and finally selection to the team. So that is, again, a huge space and a huge kind of domain which is supposed to be very important at the elite level. Now, the suggested model of talent recognition, in my understanding, is not only about talent identification or talent detection. It's basically supposed to be at least 5 stages of it, starting with talent detection for not participating children, continuing with talent identification, talent confirmation, talent placement or talent orientation, and finally talent selection. Now, basically, when we adjust or we actually fix this model, how do we move with talent development? There are models of talent development, which I will not take much of your time. They are basically belonging to 3 domains: applied, sports science, and theoretical. Among theoretical models, of course, you will know most of them. There was the Bloom theory, which actually kind of develops it from the very beginning, and not only with athletes, but also with the other type of talent. Scott and Hay model in 2002, Erickson model of deliberate practice, which is, of course, important, and which actually says, if you are not practicing much enough, or not spending enough time in sports or whatever you do, you will not actually succeed. So that talent development is something closer to us, where we have to distinguish and we have to establish norms, standards of training loads, training hours, and so on and so forth. Sports science models of talent development. We have the oldest one starting from Germans, like Dietrich Kare, continued by a good friend of mine and yours, known scientists, Abdel, saying, there's a model from Bompa, from Platonov, from Martley, and from Bally, which is now in Canada, offering kind of really nicely adjusted system of talent development with the opening like an active start and with the active for life final stage, which actually covers basic 5 stages of talent development with certain recommendations to it, which are helping kids to be developed into a real talent. There are also certain models of talent development administration-wise, which I'm just about to show you a few. Like this one shows like how you actually move from one level to another. Another model, this one is from American table tennis, and the only reason I wanted to show you this one, check the figure, 1 million children to be tested in like second stage. 1 million tennis players. How would you imagine that? So I think India can do even better than that. UK talent transfer. The United Kingdom, in order to get more medals in London, did everything to increase that number. One of the tricks they played, talent transfer. They actually called people who were about to retire to get back in sports. Not necessarily in their particular sports which they were fed up with retiring or something. Neighboring, adjacent, relative, related in whatever way. You wouldn't believe it or not, they got a couple of medals from these kind of particular programs. So, and then finally, another look at talent development, which I want to offer you before I conclude. A simple question to all of you. Do we really start developing talent after we identify it? What do you think? Do we? I don't think so. We basically have talent out there, whether we know about it or we don't know about it. Talent is being there, developed before we even touch it. It starts being developed in kind of even after being conceived. So basically, in talent development, we of course need to adjust some age factors when the 7 or younger kids are only kind of suiting particular games like gymnastics, acrobatic, and diving. Then we also have another level or another age group of 10 plus children which are good for particular sports. And finally we have sports which are older, like about boxing or wrestling, when we can actually manage or have a luxury of inviting children of an older age. That itself opens a huge and unique opportunity for kids to be actually exposed to talent identification, not once, but number of times. I will show you briefly the scheme, how it actually works, and that was there in Malaysia helping to develop it. What if you are selected or identified for so-called young sports? Fine. At the age of 7 or 8 or 9, you were there for gymnastics, acrobatics, and so on and so forth. What if you were not successful? Or if scientists were not right, offering you that sport? It's not a big deal. You still have another group of sports which actually starts later. And if you are not successful in the younger one, at the age of 12 or something, you can still migrate to some other sport. And you can be again exposed to talent identification procedure. So that you are not wasted, and the talent is not wasted, and it is still utilized. Even if something didn't happen at the second age group, you still have a chance to be selected to the third one, being boxing, wrestling, weightlifting, rowing, and so forth, and so on. Finally, I'm now about to offer you a new kind of a fresh look at talent development things. Pre-detection talent development and post-detection talent development. How does it look? It looks like a merger between physical education and sports science. So that you've got pre-detection, no sport, no specification, no specialization. Physical education teachers kind of caring for pre-detection talent development. Then, when the talent is detected by a coach of a particular discipline, coaches step in and they continue their development, and that's what I'm offering to say, it's post-detection talent development. So please let us not think that we are the ones who develop the talent. We are only the ones who develop the talent in our own children. If we are physical education teachers, we are pre-detection developers. If we are coaches, we do our job after the talent identification. And that is about it. So what happens if the talent detection point, the kid is not selected to sports? No worries, the kid is back to school. And if physical education in school is well adjusted, and we will try our best again to do so, the kid will still be developed. With that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. I hope I was not boring you too much. Thank you very much.